8 months ago, I made a video where I revisited Hearthstone's Mage class, giving it some new mechanics to imagine what it could look like if it was released into today's game. Since then, we have continued this series and have revisited all 9 of Hearthstone's original classes. But there is still one more that I have yet to cover. With 2023 nearing its end, and Hearthstone's 10-year anniversary quickly approaching, I think that it is time to finish off this series. So, welcome back to the 10th and final installment of Hearthstone Classes Revisited. The class I have decided to save for last is actually one that didn't start in the base game. While most of Hearthstone's 11 classes have been around since its launch in 2014, Demon Hunter, Hearthstone's 10th class, came out in 2020 with the release of the Ashes of Outland expansion. So, if the class is already so new, why bother to revisit it? After all, I'm not going to be making a video on their latest class, Death Knight, so why am I still covering Demon Hunter? Well, it's because I think there is still something we can bring to the class. Way back when I started this series, I knew I wanted to cover the original 9 classes and Demon Hunter, with the goal being to come up with something that expanded how each of these 10 classes could be played. That is why I chose to still revisit the Demon Hunter class. But let's see what I actually decided to do with it. So for starters, I want to actually talk about the Demon Hunter's class design, because unlike the original heroes we've already covered, we actually have a very solid idea of what the Hearthstone team's original goal was with this class. You see, way back in March of 2020, right when the Demon Hunter class was announced, IGN did a video in which they got the initial scoop of Hearthstone's new class. During the video, we got tons of information on the different designs Demon Hunter went through, from early concepts of their hero power to an old-cut class resource called Fury, which was generated whenever your hero attacked. But most importantly, we get to hear exactly how the team envisioned Demon Hunter. Ben Lee, the former game director of Hearthstone, actually directly states the fantasy they wanted to hit with the class, saying, "The core fantasy of a Demon Hunter is someone who is pretty aggressive and in your face. So part of Demon Hunter's core kit is actually attacking a lot. Not necessarily meaning you're doing a ton of damage to the enemy face, you might be attacking minions and dealing with them in that way." Throughout the video, they make it very clear that they see Demon Hunter as a class with many aggressive options, but also being capable of playing slower strategy decks as well, with efficient ways of dealing with minions on the board. Alright, so that's how the class was conceptualized, but how did it turn out in the actual game? Well, in the 4 years that Demon Hunter has been around, I would say that overall the Hearthstone team definitely succeeded in their goal. The class really captures the feeling of an agile aggressor who is constantly attacking. That is not to say that the class is perfect, because while the aggressive style of Demon Hunter has consistently been a viable and fun strategy for the class, the slower, more control-oriented Demon Hunter has been less so. We know from IGN's interview that the controlled Demon Hunter archetype is something that actually went through a lot of innovation as well, with the first idea that the team had being that Demon Hunters would control the board with their hero, using their many weapons and hero attacks to clear minions. This didn't actually pan out as well as they hoped, and so the focus was instead shifted on giving the class access to some AoE effects. Another aspect of Demon Hunter that went through many redesigns was their endgame. The intent for Control Demon Hunter was that they'd end games by summoning many big demons that would aid them in finishing off their opponents. But initial designs of this archetype saw them become too reliant on the enabler cards that helped you summon those big demons. And so they lowered the impact of those cards and buffed the big demon cards themselves. Now personally, I think there is something we can do to solve some of these problems the team ran into when initially designing the class, while actually pushing them even closer towards the Demon Hunter's main fantasy. What I have is a set of 20 cards that show off the new mechanics, archetypes, and reworks created for this class revisit. Think of it as a new initiate set for this new version of the Demon Hunter class. Alright, the first thing I want to tackle is Demon Hunter's ability to control the battlefield. Now, while I think giving the class AoE effects has definitely been beneficial, many of the cards themselves feel somewhat disjointed from the rest of the Demon Hunter kit. Since a large majority of the class is focused on attacking, a lot of their AoE spells seem just too slow or not synergistic with a lot of other Demon Hunter game plans. Some of Demon Hunter's most efficient removal has actually been cards that utilize their attacks, and allow them to put pressure on their opponent while still handling their minions, which is actually exactly what the team had envisioned in the first place. So what if we leaned into this more and made a mechanic that encouraged more of this design? Introducing a brand new keyword, Multi-Strike. Multi-Strike is a new mechanic that doesn't necessarily need to be exclusive to Demon Hunter, and it works like this. Characters with Multi-Strike can attack twice each turn, much like the Windfury mechanic. But the difference here is that both attacks must be made against separate targets, so you can't attack the same enemy twice, you must choose two different enemies to attack. This mechanic has actually been seen once before in Demon Hunter, with the spell of the same name, but I think making it a keyword opens up the possibility to explore this design space even more. Slower decks can have cards like these reworked versions of Hulking Overfiend and Warglaives of Azzinoth, which allow them to clear more minions while using less resources. The best part is that this mechanic can be used in both slower Demon Hunter decks and faster ones. So to build on this idea, I've created some more cards that would show how this attack-centric version of Demon Hunter could work. The spell Dash of Chaos shows off a new way to play a more aggressive Demon Hunter, more focused on making a lot of attacks in a single turn. Consequently, this attack archetype also makes the Demon Hunter's token package a lot more useful. So I've come up with some redesigned versions of both Coordinated Strike and Command the Illidari as well. I'd imagine cards with Rush would become quite core to the class, so making cards that synergize with Rush could be something we see more of as well. And to top it all off, we have the legendary Demon Huntress herself, Arana Starseeker. As Illidan's second in command, she fights alongside him, and both become stronger with each other's attacks. The final card I want to show off for this new Attack Demon Hunter archetype is a spell that also shows off a slight redesign of another Demon Hunter mechanic. Sigil of Havoc is a different take on a sigil spell that shows a new way of having a variable number of turns required before the sigil activates. This spell in particular takes 2 turns to trigger and gives your hero +2 attack, but the amount of attack it gives is increased by 1 whenever any friendly character attacks before the sigil triggers. Now that we have looked at a new way to play an aggressive Demon Hunter using the class's ability to attack more, let's look at how else we can improve their control archetype. Starting off, I want to discuss my biggest issue with Demon Hunter, which is the class's Big Demon archetype. As stated earlier, the Big Demon archetype was something that went through a lot of iteration, and personally, I think it ended up falling in a bit of a weird spot. Currently, the Big Demon decks work like this. You put the big demons you want to summon in your deck, and you find some way to summon them from your hand or your deck as soon as possible. Then one of 2 things can happen. The board swing just straight up wins you the game, or your demons get cleared, making your game plan kind of just fall apart. Now my issue with this is that making the big demons reliant on being summoned directly actually limits the design of the big demons themselves. You see, because the big demons are wanting to be summoned and not played, all of the actual demons themselves have to be cards that are exclusively good while on the board. Battle cries are completely out of the question because they won't trigger if summoned from another card, and we also can't really use Death Rattle payoffs because that would kind of be stepping on Warlock's big demon archetype too much. So what ended up happening is that all of the demons you summon tend to have mediocre swing effects, and since they have the potential to actually happen multiple times, they can't actually be made too powerful. So what is the solution? Well, I think the class should move away from cheating big demons out from your hand or deck directly and become more focused on having demons with powerful battle cries that can really swing the game in your favor, or in some cases even help close out games. Making the deck less reliant on the demons themselves surviving and more on getting to the point where you can play the demons. Now, I don't think the class should have to completely move away from cheating out their demons, as it is a big aspect of the class, but perhaps it could be done in different ways, such as playing cards that reduce the cost of demons in your hand. Like with this card, Void Servant, which can help you get out your big boys a turn sooner. Or, for a more extreme example, how about this reworked Sigil of Reckoning, which makes the card more synergistic with this new Big Demon archetype. And while we're on the topic of sigils, I do actually have one more sigil to share. The card Sigil of Vengeance really pushes the idea of summoning a big board of demons to its limit. The card will summon one 6/6 demon with taunt, but at the start of your turns, you can choose to delay the spell to summon additional demons. Finally, I want to show off some more designs that I think we could see for these endgame demons. The card Insidious Terror shows off how demon hunters can be rewarded for keeping their opponent's board clear throughout the game, as it has the potential to deal 10 damage to the enemy hero. This, alongside a card like Infernal Struggle, can potentially help with this goal as well, ensuring that you have your big demon, while also clearing the board in the process. And finally, the legendary payoff for it all. Felsin the Wretch gives your hero +7 attack and lifesteal. Quite a swingy card on its own, and even more so if your hero is able to attack more than once. And that is our Demon Hunter class revisit completed. With this class covered, we have now revisited all of Hearthstone's original 10 classes. Thank you all so much for joining me throughout this series. My dream is to someday be hired by Blizzard, and be able to pour the passion I have for Hearthstone into the game itself. So originally, I made this channel to act as an extension to my portfolio. But something very unexpected happened. In these last 8 months, this series has actually grown the channel so much more than I could have ever imagined. What started as just a portfolio project has turned into a community with, as of writing this, 1,400 subscribers, which is just insane to me. So thank you all so much for tuning in and checking out my wacky, if sometimes a little broken, ideas. Now that the series is completed, what's next for the channel? Well, I definitely don't plan on stopping. I've still got a ton more ideas I want to share. In particular, I'd love to do a video covering something for Battlegrounds, as I've been really enjoying playing that game mode lately. So expect more videos to come soon. Oh, also, the whole YouTuber thing, like the video if you liked it, comment something funny, subscribe and hit the bell, you know, the whole shebang. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all again very soon.